I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is UN Insider.
Coming up,
we must never give up. That is my promise to you. For peace, for dignity, for justice, for humanity. For the world we know is possible when we work as one.
leaders from around the world converge on UN headquarters for a milestone gathering, the 80th UN General Assembly. Pushing toward a greener future, a high-stakes climate summit ahead of the next climate conference.
What could make a difference on the ground is a genuine commitment to achieve, to start with, a ceasefire.
The two-state solution gains momentum, but Gaza still faces a dire humanitarian crisis. Next.
Leaders from around the world are in New York City as the United Nations marks a milestone, high-level week for the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. The UN formed in the wake of World War II with a mission to prevent another global conflict. And this week, leaders reflected on the past 8 decades during a special 80th anniversary event.
Au fil des années, notre organisation
Over the years, our organization has led the way to some of humanity's greatest triumphs. The eradication of smallpox, healing the ozone layer, and above all, for the prevention of a third world war. The tests of the next 80 years will be both familiar and new. The battle will continue against war and poverty, but also climate chaos, runaway technologies, the militarization of space, and crises we cannot yet imagine. To meet these challenges, let us remember what our founders knew. The only way forward is together.
Soyons à l'auteur de ce moment avec lucidité, courage.
Le temps est venu d'arrêter la guerre, les bombardements à Gaza.
The time has come. This is why, true to the historic commitment of my country to the Middle East, to the peace between the Israelis and Palestinians,
Le temps de la paix est venu. Car nous sommes...
this is why I declare that today France recognizes the state of Palestine.
C'est pour cela que nous nous retrouvons aujourd'hui.
That's French President Emmanuel Macron announcing his country's recognition of Palestine during a two-state solution conference. France joined Australia, Canada, Portugal, and the UK in recognizing Palestine as a state this week. Macron said it's time to release all hostages and end the fighting. Israel did not participate in the conference. There was also movement on climate change. Wednesday, during a UN climate summit, China's president announced new targets his country expects to reach by 2035. They include reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and an expansion of clean energy usage. Shudija has more on that and other big stories of the week.
This is High Level Week, the most important week of the year for the United Nations. It began with the International Conference on the Two-State Solution. During the meeting, more countries announced the recognition of the state of Palestine. Now, over 150 countries have recognized Palestine, but the question remains, will this change anything?
You worry this will actually deteriorate the situation in the West Bank?
I think we have to be determined in achieving the goal that we want to achieve, and we cannot let ourselves be distracted by threats and intimidation.
Before the meeting, Israel's permanent representative, Ambassador Denis Denoun, dismissed the conference as political theater, serving domestic interests. He also declared that the two-state solution is now off the table.
Fundamental question, is Israel still in recognition of the two-state solution?
Before October 7th, there was a debate about that in Israel. After October 7th, it's off the table. Now we are focused on bringing the hostages. We are focused on eliminating Hamas.
It's still on the table?
No.
No. In contrast, the Palestinian Observer Ambassador Riyad Mansour hailed the conference as historic.
This is an accumulation of so many things, especially when countries like France, UK, and the others, to recognize the state of Palestine. It's an investment in peace and saving the two-state solution.
Then on Tuesday, the general debate opened. It began with Brazilian President Lula, who reaffirmed the importance of multilateralism and the role of developing countries.
It will be increasingly multipolar. For it to remain peaceful, it cannot fail to be multilateral. Brazil is giving increasing importance to the European Union, the African Union, ASEAN, CELAC, BRICS, and the G20. The voice of the Global South must be heard.
Other world leaders focused largely on support for Palestine, the urgency of ending the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, and reaffirming their commitment to multilateralism. On Wednesday, Secretary General Antonio Guterres convened the 2025 Climate Summit. He outlined 5 priorities: energy transition, methane reduction, forest protection, industrial decarbonization, and climate justice. He urged COP30 to deliver a credible plan to mobilize $1.3 trillion in climate finance.
China met its 2030 wind and solar target 6 years ahead of schedule. India reached 50% electricity capacity from non-fossil fuels 5 years early. We are in the dawn of a new energy era. We must seize this moment of opportunity.
China made a major announcement at the summit, and here are some reactions to China's climate commitments.
I was pleased with President Xi Jinping's announcement. I was very pleased because China is a very large country. In 2009, when I took part in the Copenhagen summit, the developed world wanted to place the responsibility for the planet's pollution on China. And Brazil and Africa took the position that we would not accept China being punished because the industrialized countries have a historical debt regarding greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore they have an outstanding debt with the world to pay, instead of trying to blame only China. And the truth is that in recent years, China has made great progress in its energy transition and in reducing carbon emissions. And it still needs to go further. I was pleased because Xi Jinping, in addition to announcing an important amount, also said that it's possible to make further progress.
Climate change is clearly one of the greatest challenges of our time, and China has been playing a very constructive role on this issue. We think as the UN also that peace operations and basically all of our activities and operations need to factor in climate change, and we're trying to do that also in terms of how we run peace operations.
High-level week will continue until next Monday, but that's all from me for now. Back to you, Elaine.
Shudija, thanks. 2025 marks an important year for the goal of gender equality as the UN observes the 30th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women. Gender equality is one of the SDGs falling behind, but there have been positive developments. For example, more girls are in school and maternal mortality rates are falling. This week, leaders convened for a high-level meeting on gender equality.
The 80th anniversary of the United Nations coincides with the 30th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing. The UN is observing these milestones ahead of the upcoming Global Summit on Women in China. The Beijing conference, held in 1995, was a landmark event that focused on 12 critical areas of concern where women and girls face discrimination. It is still regarded as the most comprehensive agenda for achieving gender equality. At the UN on Monday, leaders renewed their pledges to fulfill the declaration's goals and highlighted progress made so far. Among them was Huang Zhuai, deputy head of China's National Working Committee on Children and Women, who told the Assembly that China has made great strides in advancing gender equality.
China has steadfastly advanced gender equality as a fundamental national policy, implemented 4 successive cycles of the National Program for Women's Development, and built a comprehensive legal framework of more than 100 laws and regulations to safeguard women's rights and interests.
Huang Zhuai spoke about the progress still to be made, a point echoed by Annalena Baerbock, the new president of the General Assembly, who cited modern-day examples of discrimination that women still face.
When the phrase, "she runs like a girl," is hailed as an insult. When highly qualified CEOs are called diversity hires. When a female world leader is attacked on social media not for the speech she gave, but for the wrong high heels she wore. That is when we remember how far we still have to go.
The goals of the Beijing Declaration align with the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5, gender equality, and the Beijing Plus 30 Action Agenda. One of the aims of that agenda is to ensure that women and girls can benefit from the digital revolution, and the Secretary-General told the Assembly that discrimination in technology must be challenged.
Artificial intelligence is reshaping our world, but the transformation is unfolding in an industry dominated by men, shaped by biased data, and driven by algorithms that frequently reinforce discrimination. We must confront violence and online hate and ensure that technology serves equality, not exclusion.
The high-level meeting saw a number of international representatives address the General Assembly. Mitch McCann, CGTN, at the United Nations in New York.
Coming up,
I think what Palestinians in Gaza are going through, it's hell in all its possible facets.
UN Insider.
World leaders, government officials, and even celebrities gather here in New York City every September for UNGA's high-level week. We sat down with some of the attendees here for this high-profile event. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has been a top priority at the UN for nearly 2 years. I sat down with Philippe Lazzarini, Commissioner General of UNRWA, the UN's relief agency for Palestinian refugees. Commissioner General, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The conflict in Gaza, as we know, has reached unprecedented levels of destruction and displacement. From your vantage point as UNRWA Commissioner General, what is the humanitarian situation on the ground as we speak, and how do you respond to those who argue that Palestinians are being deliberately forced out to make room for Israeli control?
You know, I believe it's more and more difficult to describe the humanitarian situation. We are almost out of words. I think what Palestinians in Gaza are going through, it's hell in all its possible facets. We have seen over the last 20 months already a total destruction. We have seen that there is absolutely no safe place for the Gazan. We have seen that health center, hospitals, schools, worship places have been targeted. We have seen an extraordinary toll within the population. More than 65,000 people have been killed, among them the vast majority of civilian and women and children. Gaza is not only reduced in rubble, but it's almost reduced into dust right now. So it's unbelievable. Now, where is this leading us? Indeed, the entire population is forced to move from the north to the south. They will be parked in the south like a very large, overcrowded open prison or concentration camp. And the question is, will the people in the Gaza be forced out of the Gaza Strip? Will Gaza continue, yes or not, to be the homeland of the Palestinian? I really hope so. But today no one can have any certainty right now.
As we know, several countries, most recently France, several countries, including Canada, Australia, have recognized Palestine as a state. Want to get your reaction to that, and if this recent movement is going to make any difference of the people in Gaza, the situation on the ground, and also a path toward peace. What does this do?
It is true that today a number of countries are also recognizing the state of Palestine. In reality, they are joining already 140 member states who did already recognize the state of Palestine. I believe it's definitely an important milestone. It's also a way to say that we need to do so now because we have never been so far away from the reality of a two-state solution. And if we do not wake up now and genuinely commit politically to such a solution, that might never happen. So I believe it cannot be a goal in itself. The real war will have to start now. There is a kind of roadmap also which has been agreed by the General Assembly a few days ago, which is the New York Declaration, which basically also tells what is expected to make this two-state solution a reality.
UNRWA has been accused by its critics of being politicized, while its defenders, of course, say that what UNRWA does is indispensable. How do you strike the balance between being a humanitarian, a neutral humanitarian agency, and speaking on issues that are political?
You know, in this part of the world, everything is political. We are a human development focused organization, but evolving in an extremely divided emotional environment, highly politicized. I keep reminding colleagues that even talking about waste management in a Palestinian refugee camp can be read through a political lens. So it is true that the agency has been accused, especially since October 2023, of being politically biased, of having been infiltrated by Palestinian faction, including the Hamas or the Jihad. But in reality, all these attacks are part of disinformation campaign, which motivation is to strip the Palestinian from the refugee statute, dismantling the agency, getting rid of the agency. In reality, aims at stripping the Palestinian from the statute because there is a belief in Israel that the agency is perpetuating the dependency of the Palestinian refugees. But in reality, what's perpetuate the agency and the Palestinian refugee is nothing else than the absence of a political solution.
China has become more active at the United Nations, including when it comes to Middle East issues. From your perspective, what role can China play in supporting UNRWA's work and contributing to a fair and lasting resolution of the Palestinian question?
China has politically always been a strong supporter of the agency mandate, has always promoted, in fact, the renewal of the mandate in the absence of a political solution. I do believe that China can be much more now involved in supporting also the agency to have the necessary resource to fully implement what member states, including China, expect us to do. We should never forget that the primary role of the agency in the absence of a political solution is to provide public-like services to one of the most destitute communities across the region, being the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. Basically, we provide primary, secondary education. We provide primary health. We function like a public-like institution, but we have none of the fiscal tools. We are not covered by the regular budget of the United Nations. We primarily depend on voluntary contribution.
Commissioner General Lazzarini, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
UN Insider.
Modern vitality, born of ancient civilizations. Asia exemplifies diversity in its best sense and welcomes changes at the fastest pace. Asia Today brings you the headlines from the most populous continent, puts in focus politics, economies, and faces, and takes you on a tour of the sights from the region and beyond.
High Level Week is one of the largest international gatherings in the world. Here's more from some of the officials we spoke with during the UN General Assembly.
So great value, and that charter is still, that guides us every day. I try and have it with me and read it every morning because, particularly in difficult times, we have to stick to the values of that charter, and we need the founding members, but also the newer members, to rally around that effort. The mission hasn't got any less important, and the values set out in that charter are as essential today as they were when we were founded.
Yeah, I think that it's important to remember as we do approach this 80th anniversary that the record of the United Nations over these 8 decades has been one of extraordinary achievements. Just imagine, whatever the difficulties have been, what the world would look like if the United Nations had not existed, had not been able to do what it has done. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that delivering on the founding principles of the United Nations Charter, and you've mentioned them, securing peace and security, promoting development, protecting human rights, providing humanitarian aid. This has always been a difficult job. And perhaps today, the circumstances we're working in look more difficult than it's ever been in the history of the UN. But I think the reality is we've always had to contend with problems, contend with obstacles, and we've always found a way through. So I think the challenge today on this 80th anniversary is to continue with this record, not only of achievements, but of adapting to new realities, a world which is being transformed by many factors. Some are political, some are technological, some are more economic. The United Nations needs to move with these changing times to reflect the world as it is today, not just the world as it was in 1945. And I think we're approaching our 80th anniversary very much in that spirit of modernization and improvement.
I believe that the only way to properly address these conflicts and ultimately reach political solution is a collective approach. And the UN stands for collective and multilateral responses to crisis. So in a way, it is important that we were having so many leaders, world leaders gathering here in New York for the week and having so many meetings and interaction. But what we need is for our member states to overcome their division and join forces to support political solutions that can be only achieved through collective action. So I know it's aspirational, but at the same time, it's what the UN stands for. And the UN can only achieve those goals if we have a more united membership, a more united international community able to overcome its polarization and, again, work collectively to address crisis.
A gente tem percebido, né, que
multilateralism at this moment, we have noticed that unilateralism weakens collective decisions and opens up a lot of space for wars, genocide, and impositions. And President Lula has spoken a lot about strengthening multilateralism so that we can guarantee democracies around the world. And with that, we can also prevent the advance of extremism in the world. Today, as Brazil, we bring these global agendas, such as strengthening multilateralism, democracy, and the sovereignty of countries. I think that today, this is really fundamental for us to guarantee this autonomy, this independence, and for each person to continue with all their wealth being decided by those who really own it.
Com todas as suas riquezas ali, né, sendo decidida por quem realmente é o dono. It has been 80 years since World War II ended and the United Nations formed. Special events marked both of these milestones this week, one at UN headquarters and the other at New York City's famed Lincoln Center. At the UN, China Media Group presented a visual art exhibit called Beauty in Harmony, Destiny in Unity. Its paintings, multimedia works, and visual storytelling reflect on the UN's founding vision. And Tuesday night, world-renowned pianist and United Nations Messenger of Peace, Lang Lang, was among the performers at a special concert at the Lincoln Center entitled Voices of Peace. The event also featured orchestra and vocal performances, including the United Nations singers. I'm Elaine Reyes at UN headquarters in New York. Thanks for being a UN Insider. I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is a special edition of UN Insider.
UN Insider serves as an important window for the global audience to better understand multilateral diplomacy.
It's very important for the media to cover the United Nations, to seek to understand and tell the story in ways that the average person in the street can understand.
I think it's very important that the media should contribute to conveying important messages about the reality of today's challenges.
UN Insider has come to the UN, and we at the UN are so grateful to have it here. It is the only dedicated TV program to what is happening in the UN, and it is reaching so many people with, as it says in its title, inside the UN stories.
Media plays an important role in providing objective information across the world.
We think that media has a strong power of uplifting, what we are trying to convey as messages as developing countries.
We need the mobilization of all peoples, of whole government and whole of society, and media can help us to be informed so that we also can make our part.
I think the media is fundamental to enable citizens across the world, first of all, to understand what is the rationale of having the United Nations. It's not that there is one place on planet Earth that will tell the rest of the world what to do. It is a much more complex story.